They say every house has a story, but my childhood home held a secret behind a door that no one was allowed to open for 20 years. That room stayed locked. No one had the key. And whenever I got too close, my mother would whisper, "Some doors should stay closed, Beth." But after she fell ill and I came back to care for her, that door creaked open. Inside, I found an old crib and a single photograph I had never seen before. 2 babies, not one. Me, ... And someone who looked just like me. Who was he? If you discovered you once had a twin and your mother never spoke, his name? There are things in this life we're meant to forget, but some memories ... they don't die. They wait, they rot, and one day, they come knocking. If this story pulls at something deep inside you, something you've buried, make sure to subscribe to this channel. I tell stories that stay with you long after the screen fades to black. Stories like this one. Now, let me take you back. To the day I opened the door, the house smelled exactly the same. Faint lavender mixed with dust and something older, like time refusing to move on. I hadn't stepped foot inside since college. Now, 22 years later, I was back. Not for a visit, but to take care of my mother. Her health had declined fast. The neighbors said she'd been forgetting things, burning food, misplacing keys, calling out names that didn't belong to anyone. I walked down the hallway, my suitcase wheels thumping softly against the old wooden floor. The family photos were still there. My graduation, her wedding picture. Me as a baby, alone, always just me. Then I saw it, the door at the end of the hall. The one with the tarnished brass knob, still locked, still untouched. My breath caught. 20 years, and she still kept that room sealed. I walked into the kitchen, where Mom was sitting at the table, staring at a cold cup of tea, like it might answer her questions. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not just old or fragile, like a shadow of herself. "Hi, Mom," I said, placing my hand gently on hers. She blinked, then smiled. "Elizabeth," she whispered, "you came home." Her voice cracked. Mine did too. She reached up, touching my face like she was making sure I was real. Then, almost in the same breath, she asked, "Did you bring the baby?" I froze. I don't have a baby, Mom." She frowned, confused. "Oh, I must be thinking of someone else." The nurse had warned me. She drifts sometimes, gets stuck in memories. But what memory was she stuck in? Later that night, while unpacking, I asked casually, "Hey, Mom, what's in that locked room?" At the end of the hall, her face went still, like stone. She didn't answer right away, just stared past me, eyes distant, then softly like it hurt to speak. Nothing good ever came from that room. She wouldn't say another word. I tried to laugh it off. "Come on, you're not hiding a secret treasure or a hidden lover in there, are you?" She cracked a smile. "If I was, I would have picked someone better looking than your father." We both chuckled. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh in years. For a moment, we weren't mother and daughter weighed down by years of silence. We were 2 women sharing something warm, something almost normal. But that door, still pressed against my mind like a hand on my shoulder that night. I couldn't sleep. The hallway creaked with every whisper of wind. The house moaned like it remembered things no one else did. I wrapped myself in my old quilt, the one with the faded blue stars Mom made when I was 6, and sat at the foot of my childhood bed, and then I heard it. A soft, rhythmic thump from the end of the hall. From behind that door, I told myself it was just the wind, old pipes, my imagination, but something inside me stirred. You know that feeling when you're about to uncover something, and deep down you wish you never would? That's exactly how I felt. Still, I stood up, walked barefoot down the hall, stopped in front of the locked room, placed my hand on the knob. It was cold. Not just room temperature cold, but wrong cold. I leaned in, pressing my ear to the door. Nothing, just silence. But then a creak, a breath, a sound so faint I couldn't tell if it came from behind the door or from inside my own chest. I whispered, "Who's in there?" Number. Answer. But the air felt heavier, like the house was holding its breath with me. I turned away. I didn't open it. Not that night. Instead, I went back to bed and dreamed of 2 babies lying side by side, one smiling, one screaming. When I woke up, there were tears on my pillow, and I didn't know why. The morning light crept through the old lace curtains, casting shadows that looked too much like fingers reaching across the floor. Mom was already up, sitting by the window, humming something I hadn't heard in years. It was a lullaby, soft, slow, and heartbreaking. "Is that the one you used to sing to me?" I asked. She smiled, but didn't answer. Her fingers trembled in her lap like they remembered more than her mind did. "I used to sing it to both of you," she said. "Both." I paused. "Both of who, Mom?" She blinked. "I didn't say that." I didn't press, not yet. That afternoon, I walked to the garden behind the house, where old rose bushes had grown wild without care. The fence was leaning, the bird bath cracked, but the old wooden swing was still there. I sat on it, like I used to when I was a kid, and just like back then, Mrs. Langford from next door popped her head over the hedge. Well, I'll be little Beth Carter, all grown up. "Hi, Mrs. Langford," I said, smiling. She looked me up and down like I was a ghost. "You look just like her." "Like who?" "Her, the other one." I stared. "What other one?" She squinted suddenly, unsure. "Wait, maybe I'm confused so many years. My memory's not what it used to be." She laughed awkwardly, then added, "But I do remember one thing. That night, the night the ambulance came, I sat forward." "What night?" Her face changed, eyes narrowed, lips pressed tight. "I shouldn't say more. Your mama wouldn't like it, please. I just want to understand." Mrs. Langford sighed. It was late, maybe 2 in the morning. I heard screaming loud, then silence, then the sound of something. Breaking glass, I think. Next thing I know, flashing lights. Your mom out on the porch, barefoot in her nightgown, holding a towel, soaked in something. My skin prickled. "What happened?" She shrugged. "They never told us. Just that it was a family matter." Then, in a softer voice, but I remember thinking, that scream didn't sound like it came from one person. I felt something heavy sink inside me. Later that night, I asked Mom directly what happened 20 years ago. She was folding laundry. Towels she'd already folded twice. She didn't look up. "Accidents happen," she said. "Did someone get hurt? Still folding? Some things are better left alone. Beth, Mom, I deserve to know." She dropped the towel. Her voice changed. "Deserve." Then she laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. "You think you deserve answers? You think this is some story you can just open like a book?" She turned to me, eyes sharp and wet. "There are things in this house that want to stay quiet." For a moment, I didn't recognize her. I saw not my mother, but a woman, haunted, exhausted, terrified of something she'd locked away not just in that room, but inside herself. I sat down beside her, gently placing my hand over hers. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I just want to understand." Her shoulders shook. "I hear him, you know," she whispered. "Who?" She looked down. "In my dreams. He cries sometimes. Other times, he just watches me." My heart ached. "Mom, who is he?" She didn't answer, just closed her eyes and hummed that same lullaby again that night. I made tea, chamomile, poured her a cup, then sat across from her. I smiled and said, "If you won't tell me, maybe I'll ask the house." She raised an eyebrow. "You always were a stubborn child. Learned from the best." We both chuckled, and for a second, the tension melted. But as I helped her into bed, she gripped my arm tightly. "If you go into that room," she said, "don't believe everything you see." I stared. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer, just turned away. That night I lay awake again, not because of the wind, not because of creaks and groans, but because of what she said. Don't believe everything you see. What was she hiding? What had this house witnessed? And most of all, what had I forgotten? It happened the next morning. Mom had collapsed while watering the plants. The paramedics came quickly. She was breathing but barely coherent. They said it was likely dehydration, but I knew better. Her mind was slipping faster than I'd realized. At the hospital, she gripped my wrist with surprising strength. "If I don't come back," she whispered, "don't go into that room." I nodded, but I lied because once I returned home, I didn't even take off my shoes. I walked straight down the hall. To the door, the brass knob still cold, still unwelcome. I held my breath, slid the old key hidden behind a cracked photo frame and turned it. Click. The sound echoed through the hallway, like something exhaled on the other side. I pushed the door open. It creaked loud and slow, like even the hinges didn't want me there. The smell hit me first. Dust, mildew, and something else. Something metallic like rust, like blood. I stepped. Inside. The room was small, just 10 feet by 10, but it felt endless, like it had its own gravity. To the left, a rocking chair still covered in a white sheet, yellowed at the edges. To the right, an old baby crib, wooden hand-carved. A soft blue blanket still folded neatly inside. I didn't breathe. I moved. Slowly, step by step, the floor creaked in protest. I knelt by the crib on the edge of the mattress. A faded ribbon, blue, with the name Benjamin stitched in pale thread. I stared. Benjamin. There was no Benjamin in our family, was there? I turned slowly, and that's when I saw it. A dark stain on the floorboards, right beneath the window, dried, brown red, years old, but unmistakable blood. I covered my mouth. The room spun. I backed away, bumping into the small desk behind me. Papers fell to the floor. Among them, a photo, two babies, swaddled, side by side. One, clearly me, the other a boy. Same eyes, same hair, same dimpled chin. I blinked, looked at the back. No date, no names. Just a single word written in delicate script, mine. The air shifted. A gust of wind blew through the room, rattling the window pane, except the window was shut. I stood frozen. Then, from the corner of the room, a small noise, a creak. The rocking chair moved. Just an inch. I stared. It stopped. My heart thundered. I grabbed the photo, the ribbon, and backed out of the room, shutting the door behind me. I leaned against it, chest heaving. This wasn't just a room. This was a tomb. I went to the kitchen, poured myself some whiskey. It was barely noon, but I didn't care. I needed answers. And for once, I needed to talk to someone who wasn't emotionally unstable or dead. So I called Uncle Ray, my mom's brother, the black sheep of the family, the one who always got drunk at Christmas and told stories no one believed. When he picked up, his voice was groggy. "Beth, haven't heard from you since you were yay high and wearing pigtails?" "Uncle Ray, I found something." "Uh-oh, did it have teeth?" "Not funny. Well, depends who you ask." I told him what I saw. The crib, the ribbon, the blood. He went quiet, then said softly, "Your mom had twins, Beth." I stopped breathing. "She lost one." I asked. A pause then. "That's what you wanted everyone to believe. What do you mean?" "Let's just say things weren't right. After the birth, your dad wasn't around much, and your mom, she wasn't sleeping. Said the boy screamed too much. Said he wasn't normal." My chest tightened. "Where is he?" Ray sighed. "I don't know. I wasn't allowed to visit." Then one day she told us he was gone. No funeral, no obituary, just gone. I sat down. The room swayed. "She lied to everyone," I whispered. He didn't respond. Didn't have to. I hung up. Silence filled the house again. Only this time, it wasn't empty. It was waiting. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house felt like a whisper. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret. At 2:14 a.m., I gave up trying. I padded down the hallway barefoot, holding a flashlight like I was 10 again and afraid of the dark. Stood outside the locked room. Key in my palm, the ribbon still in my pocket. I didn't go in. Instead, I turned right, into Mom's room. It smelled like her perfume, powdery and soft like rose petals, left in a drawer too long. I opened the top drawer of her dresser, rummaging past scarves and old brooches. At the very bottom, a worn leather journal. It was cracked at the spine, swollen from age. Pages yellowed like tea-stained linen. I opened it. The first entry dated back 20 years. June 3rd, the babies cried all night. Both of them. But Ben's crying is different. It rattles inside my head. I can't breathe when he screams. Beth is quiet, sweet. But Ben, oh God, what's wrong with him? My hands trembled. I flipped forward. June 18th. Frank won't come near him, he says. Ben gives him chills. What, Father? Says that, but sometimes I understand. Sometimes I feel it too. Like something is staring at me through his baby eyes. Something old, something angry. Frank, my father. The one who left when I was barely 1. I thought he abandoned us. But what if? I turned the page. July 1st. I locked the door today. I couldn't take the sound. The silence afterward was so peaceful. I only meant for an hour, but it felt like breathing for the first time in months. I felt sick. She locked him in. A baby. I flipped again. Faster now. July 4th, I told the neighbors. Ben is with my sister. A little vacation. They believed me. It's so easy to lie when you're smiling. The next few entries were scratched out, ripped, smeared with something dark. Ink or tears, I couldn't tell. Then, July 20th, the crying stopped. No punctuation, no emotion, just silence between the lines. July 21st, I told Frank Ben died in his sleep. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just packed and left. I buried the truth inside that room and promised God I'd never go back. My stomach twisted. She hadn't just locked a door, she locked away a life. I closed the journal slowly, as if it might scream if I moved too fast. Then a knock at the front door. I froze. Who the hell knocks at 2:30 a.m.? I tiptoed to the living room window. No one there, just the wind pushing the swing back and forth. But on the doormat, a box. Small, wooden, wrapped in twine. I opened the door, looked around. No car, no footsteps, just that eerie stillness before dawn. I picked up the box and brought it inside. Inside, a single cassette tape label, Play Me. I stared at it for a full minute, then realized Mom's room still had an old tape recorder. I pressed it in, hit play. Crackling. Then her voice. If you're hearing this, it means I'm either gone or too far gone to stop you. Beth, I tried to protect you. From him, from me, I didn't know what else to do. But the truth? The truth has claws. And it always finds a way to scratch its way back. Her voice shook. Benjamin wasn't. Like you, he didn't sleep. He didn't blink. He watched, always watched. Even the doctors didn't understand. They called it a rare neurological disorder, but I know what I saw, and I saw something inhuman. I pressed pause. My hands were shaking. I rewound, played it again. I needed to be sure I wasn't imagining things. Her voice so calm and afraid at once was unmistakable. I kept the room locked because I feared what was inside. But now, I fear what might still be there. The tape clicked off. Silence, but not in my chest. Inside a storm, I stood, walked back down the hallway, stood again at the door. This time I didn't open it. I whispered to the key in my hand. Who were you, Benjamin? And why does it feel like you never left? The night air was heavy, like it knew something I didn't. I lay in bed, gripping the covers, ears straining, and then a sound. Soft, subtle, a baby crying, faint, like it came from deep inside the walls. I shot upright. No TVs were on, no babies. Lived on our street. It was 3:12 a.m. Exactly. The crying faded. Then started again. From the hallway, from the locked room, I grabbed the flashlight and crept out. My fingers grazed the walls for balance, my knees, trembling like a child afraid of her own house. The door stood still, shut tight, but the sound, now louder and behind it. Something else. Whispers. I leaned in, couldn't quite make out the words, but one thing was clear: someone, or something, was inside. I backed away, and just then the doorknob jiggled. I ran. No shame, no bravery, just raw human fear. I spent the rest of the night downstairs on the couch with every light on. By morning, it felt like a dream, a twisted, disturbing dream. But dreams don't leave bruises on doorknobs. Dreams don't whisper your name when you're awake. The hospital called around 10 a.m. Mom was conscious barely. I rushed over, journal and tape in my bag. She looked older, frailer, but when she saw me, her eyes cleared for a second. She tried to speak, but no sound came. I squeezed her hand and whispered, "It's okay, Mom. I found the tape. I know about Ben." Tears filled her eyes. She mouthed something. I leaned in. She whispered, "Not dead." I froze. What? Her grip tightened. Not dead. Never was. On the drive home, I felt like I was unraveling. If Ben didn't die, then where had he been? What had she locked away for 20 years? And what had I released? I stopped at the library. Old newspaper archives. I searched for any death records, obituaries. Anything on a baby named Benjamin Lewis from 20 years ago? Nothing. But I did find something else. A police report filed. July 22nd, child neglect complaint. An anonymous tip. Officer sent to the Lewis home. Case closed with no follow-up. I slammed the book shut. 20 years ago. Someone knew, someone tried to help, but no one ever followed up back home. I went to the room again. The key in my hand felt colder than before. I unlocked the door. The air inside was still not stale, still like it was holding its breath. I stepped. Inside, the dust was thicker than ever. But the crib had moved. Not much. Just a few inches, but enough to notice. I turned on the flashlight, sweeping it across the room. Something caught the light. I knelt under the crib. A box. Old wooden, just like the one on the porch. Inside. A stack of drawings, children's drawings, crude, sketches in crayon, 2 children. Always 2. One smiling, one with black eyes and a red mouth stretched unnaturally wide. Page after page after page. The last drawing made me drop the box. It was me, as a child, standing next to a dark figure. Same face, same hair, but the eyes, black pits, and under it, scribbled, in shaky handwriting, "Ben and me, he never left." I backed out of the room, heart pounding like a war drum. The door slammed shut behind me. I screamed. The air turned cold. Then a laugh. High, hollow, like a child. Pretending to laugh, I ran that night. I didn't sleep. I watched the crib camera app on my phone I'd set up in the hallway. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the door to the room opened by itself and something stepped out. Not visible, not exactly, just a shadow moving where there should be none. It turned toward the camera, and for a second, 2 glowing eyes stared straight into the lens. Then black screen, camera dead. But I knew my twin wasn't gone. He never left. And now, he wasn't hiding. Anymore? I didn't want to go back, but I had to. There was still one person I hadn't spoken to. Mrs. Ellison, next door, lived there longer than we had. She used to bring cookies when I was little, watched our house like a hawk. Back then, I thought she was just nosy. Now, I was hoping she'd been paying attention. Her porch creaked under my shoes as I walked up. She opened the door before I even knocked. Beth, she said, looking me over with eyes too sharp for her age. I was wondering when you'd come. Can I ask you something? I said, dot. She nodded and stepped aside. Her home smelled like cinnamon and old books, warm, safe, and very much a lie, because as soon as I sat down, she asked, "You opened the room, didn't you?" My throat tightened. "How did you?" She didn't answer. Just poured tea, chamomile, like Mom used to drink. "I saw the light on," she said quietly. "From that window, last Thursday, at 3:12, that time again, 3:12, always." 3:12? Why does that time matter? I asked. She looked at me, face unreadable. "Because that's when he used to cry." Her voice lowered. "Your mother didn't lie, Beth. She wasn't crazy. She did what she had to do." I was stunned. "You know about Ben?" Mrs. Ellison took a long breath. "Not everything, but I heard things, saw things. Back then, before the door was locked." She hesitated. "There was something wrong with him. Wrong. Not sick. Not disabled. Something deeper. He didn't act like a baby. Didn't cry like one. Didn't smile." She stood and walked to an old cabinet, pulling out a worn envelope. Inside a photograph, it showed my mom holding two babies. One looked like me, bright-eyed, reaching out the other. His face was turned, but the eyes, even in a photograph, they looked wrong, flat, cold. "I heard him one night," she continued. "Through the window he was laughing, but it wasn't right. It didn't sound like a baby." She shivered. "And then the cat went missing." I blinked. "What?" "My cat Felix. He vanished. 2 days later, I found bones under your porch." Her hands trembled as she held her teacup. "I tried to call child services, but before they came, your mother disappeared for 2 days. When she returned, she said, 'It's taken care of in the door.' I asked. She locked it. From then on, that room stayed closed. No one was allowed in, and the crying stopped." I felt lightheaded. "So you think she killed him?" Mrs. Ellison didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "Do you?" I didn't know, and that terrified me. I left her house with the photo still in my hand. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the picture, 2 babies, same age, same blanket, but only one of them looked alive. I flipped the photo over. There in my mother's handwriting. Ben, 3:12 a.m. day 9. Why mark the time? What happened that night? Suddenly, the front door creaked. No wind. No movement. But it opened by itself. I grabbed my phone and checked. The hallway cam. It was back on footsteps, bare feet, child-sized, walking across the hallway floor. I watched the screen in horror as they paused in front of the locked room. The door opened slowly. The feed cut to static, and from the speakers, crying. Not just a baby's cry. Mine. A recording. From 20 years ago. From a night I don't remember, but someone else does. And now, they want me to remember tomorrow. I'm going back to the hospital. I need answers only my mother can give me. Before it's too late. Before that thing in the hallway stops, pretending to be a child. Because if Mrs. Ellison's right, my twin isn't dead, he's waiting, and he wants me to come home. I didn't want to go back, but I had to. There was still one person I hadn't spoken to. Mrs. Ellison, next door, lived there longer than we had. She used to bring cookies when I was little, watched our house like a hawk. Back then, I thought she was just nosy. Now, I was hoping she'd been paying attention. Her porch creaked under my shoes as I walked up. She opened the door before I even knocked. "Beth," she said, looking me over with eyes too sharp for her age. "I was wondering when you'd come. Can I ask you something?" I said, dot. She nodded and stepped aside. Her home smelled like cinnamon and old books, warm, safe, and very much a lie, because as soon as I sat down, she asked, "You opened the room, didn't you?" My throat tightened. "How did you?" She didn't answer. Just poured tea, chamomile, like Mom used to drink. "I saw the light on," she said quietly. "From that window, last Thursday, at 3:12, that time again, 3:12, always." 3:12? Why does that time matter? I asked. She looked at me, face unreadable. "Because that's when he used to cry." Her voice lowered. "Your mother didn't lie, Beth. She wasn't crazy. She did what she had to do." I was stunned. "You know about Ben?" Mrs. Ellison took a long breath. "Not everything, but I heard things, saw things. Back then, before the door was locked." She hesitated. "There was something wrong with him. Wrong. Not sick. Not disabled. Something deeper. He didn't act like a baby. Didn't cry like one. Didn't smile." She stood and walked to an old cabinet, pulling out a worn envelope. Inside a photograph, it showed my mom holding 2 babies. One looked like me, bright-eyed, reaching out the other. His face was turned, but the eyes, even in a photograph, they looked wrong, flat, cold. "I heard him one night," she continued. "Through the window he was laughing, but it wasn't right. It didn't sound like a baby." She shivered. "And then the cat went missing." I blinked. "What?" "My cat Felix. He vanished. 2 days later, I found bones under your porch." Her hands trembled as she held her teacup. "I tried to call child services, but before they came, your mother disappeared for 2 days. When she returned, she said, 'It's taken care of in the door.' I asked. She locked it. From then on, that room stayed closed. No one was allowed in, and the crying stopped. I felt lightheaded. 'So you think she killed him?' Mrs. Ellison didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, 'Do you?' I didn't know, and that terrified me. I left her house with the photo still in my hand. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pictured 2 babies, same age, same blanket, but only one of them looked alive. I flipped the photo, over there in my mother's handwriting. Ben, 3:12 a.m. day 9. Why mark the time? What happened that night? Suddenly, the front door creaked. No wind. No movement. But it opened by itself. I grabbed my phone and checked. The hallway cam. It was back on footsteps, bare feet, child-sized, walking across the hallway floor. I watched the screen in horror as they paused in front of the locked room. The door opened slowly. The feed cut to static, and from the speakers, crying. Not just a baby's cry. Mine. A recording. From 20 years ago. From a night I don't remember, but someone else does. And now, they want me to remember tomorrow. I'm going back to the hospital. I need answers only my mother can give me. Before it's too late. Before that thing in the hallway stops, pretending to be a child. Because if Mrs. Ellison's right, my twin isn't dead, he's waiting, and he wants me to come home. The hospital was quieter than usual. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead as I walked through the empty corridor. Room 209, that's where the call had been traced. That's where Ben, if that's even who it was listed as a patient. But when I asked the nurse, she looked at me strangely. "There's no child in that room then. Who's in there?" She hesitated. "An adult, admitted last night. No ID, nonverbal, just sits there, staring at the wall." I pushed the door open. A man sat by the window, mid-30s, dressed in hospital whites. He didn't move, didn't even blink, but the moment I stepped in, he turned and smiled. "Beth." My blood froze. He knew my name. "Do I know you?" He stood up. Walked toward me. Each step slow, deliberate. "I waited," he said. "You were supposed to come back." My mouth went dry. "You're Ben." He tilted his head. I took a step back. "What do you want?" He stared into me, not at me, into me. "Your place." Suddenly flashes hit me. Memories that weren't mine. A crib, a dark room, a woman crying, screaming, then silence and a door slamming shut. I gasped. "You've been living in there all this time?" He nodded. "You fed me fear every year, every tear. Every time you walked past that door, wondering." He took another step. "And now, I want to live in your skin." I ran through the hallway, down the stairs, out of the hospital, but he followed. Always 5 steps behind, never running, just walking, knowing I couldn't run forever. That night, I locked myself in the old nursery, the door that started it all now. I was inside. I grabbed the salt, the old journal, the lighter, and I waited at exactly 3:12 a.m. The knob turned, but it didn't open. Instead, his voice came from the other side. "I missed you." I lit the journal. Its pages turned to ash. Smoke filled the room. I screamed, "You are not my brother." The flames climbed higher, and for the first time, he screamed too. A sound not meant for human ears. Morning came. The fire had died. The door was still shut, but no more whispers, no more footsteps, no more Ben. Weeks passed. I moved in with my aunt across town, tried to live, tried to forget. Until one morning the hospital called. "Miss Beth, I believe we found your photo in one of our patients' rooms." My heart stopped. "Room 209, I returned, shaking to that hospital. They handed me a Polaroid. It was me standing in front of the locked nursery, taken from the inside, and on the back, a single word scrawled in red ink again. Final twist. Post-credit months later. The house was sold to a new family. They had a baby one night. The mother went to check the monitor. The baby wasn't in the crib, but the door to the old nursery, the one sealed for decades, was wide open, and from the baby monitor, a voice whispered, "I'm home." Some houses don't just hold memories. They hold unfinished stories. What happened in that locked room may sound impossible, but sometimes the deepest scars in a family aren't visible. They echo through walls, through generations, waiting for someone brave enough to face them. Beth did, but at what cost? Was Ben ever truly gone, or did something darker take his place? As a family therapist, I've seen how trauma hides in silence. But this story? It asks a chilling question. What happens when the silence starts speaking back? Let me ask you, have you ever felt something in your childhood home that couldn't be explained? A door that never opened? A room no one talked about? Share your story in the comments. I read every one of them, and if this story gripped you like it did me, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. We tell more than just scary tales we uncover. The truth that hides behind closed doors, who knows? The next story might be yours.